Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast, powered by Gale. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama. Parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm good, Scott. Other than a bunch of crap I got to do as soon as we get done recording today, I am good.
Now, are you fake busy or busy? Is this insurance
busy?
Okay.
Busy. First of the month, that kind of stuff.
Understood.
And we have a bunch of people out. I'll tell you, I was telling this story to the guys before we came on the air. So, when we record, you were talking about people being out yesterday in the previous episode, and I'm really bad at paying attention to who's here and who's not here because I just get in my zone, and but also when we record, we're basically in a bubble.
We are.
I'm basically on vacation. I'm not here. My staff knows unless the building's on fire, don't bother me. So yesterday we get done recording about 3:00, and I left to go to Pensacola to go pick my daughter up. And I was on my way back, and she fell asleep. And I said, "Oh, let me call Kenneth and see how things were flowed at the office today."
I noticed his light was out in his office all day yesterday.
And sometimes them not bothering me when they know I'm in a bubble gives me more anxiety because I'm thinking, what kind of freaking just gargantuan problem happened?
Sure.
Miss Johnson's house flooded, and she doesn't have flood insurance, whatever.
Right.
And so I called Ken. I was like, "Hey," and I noticed he sounded, this is at like 4:45, and I noticed he sounded kind of weird. He's like, "Hello?" He didn't sound like himself, and I was like, "Hey, man, was just Kenneth, I apologize if you don't want me to say this on the air, but it's too late." I was like, "Hey, I was just calling to see how, everything went at the office today." And he said, "Oh, I'm drinking a beer sitting on a hill in North Carolina." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm in North Carolina drinking." I was like, "Oh, you're on vacation today?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm on vacation." Kenneth is not taking Kenneth took, I think, 2 days off work in all of 2024. Wow. And so I made him sort of like, you need to take a vacation. Right. And I was like, I seriously apologize that the one vacation you took in 2 years, I decided to call you and ask you about work. And so anyway, so that happened yesterday.
Well, obviously he deserves a vacation, number one.
100%.
Number two, you just said that sparked something, and then we're going to bring our all-star guests on today. We got two actually all-star guests. But I think the longer I live on this big spinning rock, the more I realize from an employee standpoint, some people just have that thing inside them, that inner motivation, that drive, that determination, that
I am at my happiest at the office.
I call it the Gordon Ramsay factor.
My employees always tell me, like on my birthday, "Why don't you take the day off and go do something fun?" I'm like, "No, I would rather be here."
Correct. And I call it the Gordon Ramsay factor, where they're going to show up every day, and you got to almost force them to go take a vacation. And then there's some people
you got to force them to go to work.
Buddy, I've had them ask me, "Are we off on Veterans Day?" I'm like, "Well, last time I checked, I'm the only son bitch that's a veteran." So
He did say that. I think you sent me a screenshot of that email or something.
Can you believe these sons of bitches are asking? And now we do take off on Veterans Day, and Memorial Day, and all the holidays. But I'm just like, I don't know. I've said this many times before. When it comes to boyfriends, girlfriends, and employees, they can hold the rope for about 90 days when they start. If you want to see the best you're ever going to get out of somebody, is going to be that first 90 days.
Yeah.
Just like the boyfriend who's bringing you roses and taking you to the expensive dinners and
love bombing.
And then 90 days later, he's laying on the couch wanting to know where his chicken pot pie is.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's bring our all-star
But
guest on.
it's really, we've had a couple folks in the past that we've hired that very quickly you're like, okay, if you're letting your hair down in the first 90 days, this isn't going to work.
6 months, boy, you're really going to be letting it down.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I want to give these
Very
guys
special podcast.
very special podcast. Got 2 brand spanking new podcast guests on, never been on the show before. I'm excited to talk to them. Guys, if you're on the road right now, pull over at a rest stop. You're going to want to hear this podcast today if you are a captive or independent insurance agent, because the guys we're talking to and the carrier we're talking about today, I will promise you, you will know who they are. So let me give these boys the introduction they've always deserved. He was born and raised in Traverse City, Michigan, and his wife, beautiful wife's name is Hillary. He's a graduate of the University of Colorado at Boulder and the Leeds School of Business, and has a degree in marketing and finance. We're going to talk about this, Bradley. In 2024, he tried his hand at improv comedy.
Oh,
Brother from another mother.
that's something that you need to do.
Interesting. He started his insurance career with the carrier that we're going to talk about today. In 2019, he was hired as a manager of agent marketing. In 2021, promoted to senior manager of marketing strategy. And in 2024, promoted to the director of marketing strategy for Hagerty. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to bring on our very first guest, Mr. John Gessner. How are you, John?
Hey, what's up? And good morning, boys.
Hey,
good to be here.
Good to have you here.
All right. So when he
second,
he said stand up comedy, I didn't know which one to use bio that was, and I looked at and I was like, I think it's the dude on the right.
Am I the dude on the right?
Yes.
Yeah, your picture's on the right. So
right.
our second guest today, born, raised, and lives in Traverse City, Michigan. He is married to the beautiful Renee, and he is a graduate of the University of Michigan. His illustrious career, dating back to 2005, started out as a claims adjuster, claims team leader from 2006 to 2012, and high-value claims adjuster. Don't think we're not going to talk about that today. 2012 to 2018, he was the specialty product manager, motorsports, military vehicles, and motorcycles. And in 2018 to 2020, he was promoted to senior manager of agency sales. 2020 to 2022, director of virtual sales teams. I'm assuming that was during the COVID years. And then 2022 to 2024, regional vice president. And today, he is the vice president of national sales and insurance partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you our other guest, Bryant Kolle. How are you, Mr. Bryant?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Guys, I want to go ahead and say this, and I said it in our first intro just a second ago. These gentlemen today are representing Hagerty Insurance, and if you have been an insurance agent, doesn't matter if it's independent or captive for the past, if you've been doing it a year, I'm sure you know who Hagerty is. It is our honor and our privilege today to have you guys on. Hagerty has been such a staple in this industry for so long. It's just, you talk to anybody who has a collectible and you mention the word Hagerty, they know exactly who you're talking about.
Thank you, Scott. I can't say anything more than you just said, so I'm flattered, and thank you for the beautiful introduction.
Well, and I want to say this too. I'm in the weeds every day. I'm boots on the ground. I'm the guy that you call when you want to know what's really going on. I will say that over the past 2 or 3 years, it seems like there have been some other competitors come into your market, lower price, that kind of thing. But Bradley and I have this conversation all the time. When you talk about a company like Hagerty, who has so many data points from such a long, Hagerty's been around for a long time. They have data points and industry data on their customers and their cars. if I'm a betting man, however things are priced in the market, I'm going to bet that Hagerty probably has it correct and everybody else is probably out of step. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense, and you're right. There has been some newer companies come in, and to your point, what we try to do is remain stable. We don't want to do these crazy rate increases, and so we hear about when I'm the same as you. I'm out in the field a lot, visiting hundreds of agents a year, if not. And I love doing that, by the way. I love being in offices, smelling the coffee, meeting the people. But we hear some competitors that maybe came in at a cheaper rate, but now they're doing like a 73% rate increase in California or a 50% rate increase in Texas. And that's just something that Hagerty doesn't want to do. We want to be that consistent. If you're trusting with your client, we don't want to give you a 70% rate increase. So we just want to remain consistent and remain very, very competitive, but don't have all these crazy things of some of these new startups coming into the space. So.
Hey, Bryant, you and I got to talk about something for just a second. I don't remember what year it was, but I believe you were, I don't know which capacity you were working in, but there's a McLaren story that you have, a McLaren F1. And
Yes.
I should have mentioned this in your bio just a minute ago. You worked on a McLaren F1 as a claims adjuster, you had to travel to England, and you lived there for 3 months as the work and the repair work was being done on this McLaren. It was at the time, $3 million vehicle, now today worth $20 million. Tell us, if you can, and for privacy reasons, you may not be able to, kind of in general what happened and then kind of how that process played out, because there's not a whole lot of folks riding around in the McLaren.
I'm really glad you asked. This is one of my favorite stories and the highlights of why I actually liked working in claims. I know not a lot of claims people have a good time working in claims, but I'm unique. I loved working in claims at Hagerty. I miss it. But
Now,
the story
You're like the great white buffalo in that statement right there. Like you're like in the top like 0.0001%.
so going back to your bio before you get started with this story, was this 2005, 2006 when you were a claims adjuster?
Yeah, so it was technically the claim happened in 2008 and I was in England in 2009. So yes, I was a claims adjuster and it's actually I'm really glad you guys asked this because it's my favorite story, like I said. So for the listeners on the air, you can Google this. I can't tell the client's name, but you can Google McLaren F1 California fire. And there's photos on Google of this car actually still on fire. People saw it on the freeway and stopped and took photos of it. But long story short, I happened to take the phone call from the client. He was on the side of the road. The fire department had just left. They'd put the fire out. If you're online looking at the photos, you can see it got almost all the way into the cab, and the McLaren, the engine's in the back. Also very interesting, the McLaren is kind of like the most unique car I've ever been in because there's a single steering wheel, and you're sitting in the middle of the car, and then both sides of you to the right and to the left behind you are the passenger seats. So it's not like a normal car where the steering wheel's on the left or the right. It's in the middle of the car. And so anyway, the client said, "Hey, I was driving down the road and all these people were waving at me, trying to get my attention." But he's like, "It usually happens because it's a McLaren F1." I turned around, I saw fire behind me. I pulled over. Luckily, the fire department put it out. So we took it to a couple different places in the West Coast. In McLaren's center in California. We took it to another high-end restoration shop. No one could fix the car. So we decided to send it back to McLaren. All of these cars, the McLaren F1 comes with their own concierge. And I remember talking to this concierge almost every day. So fast forward, we sent the car back to McLaren in England, the technology center in Woking outside of London. And I went over there, like you said, and lived for 3 months and started the repairs on the car. Now the McLaren F1 is very unique because it's the first full carbon fiber car. So there's no steel. It's all carbon fiber.
That sounds like death waiting to happen.
Yeah, right. I mean, and now like, my iPhone case is carbon fiber, but back in 2008, 2009,
that sounds like going down to see the Titanic in a device made by carbon fiber. Sorry, too soon.
So wait, I gotta back up just a second, Bryant. I love this story, by the way.
By the way, I Googled who owned it. I've never heard of this person.
So you said that the fire started and the engine is in the back of the car, and that's where the fire started. Was it a situation of a part malfunctioning, or Was he revving the engine up so hard that he blew something that caught the? How did the fire start? What was the cause?
Yeah, so it's part of the story, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were going to get to that. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, you're good, Scott. You're good, Scott. So no, absolutely. So I can jump to that part though. So he wasn't revving or anything. The cause of the fire to this day is still undetermined. So the engine was actually manufactured by BMW.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came to a conclusion. BMW didn't want known that maybe their engine failed, and I'm still not saying if it did or didn't. We don't know. So at BMW, we came to an agreement of they'll just give us a new engine, and we won't investigate what the cause of the fire was.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, right.
That's like every house fire ever is an electrical fire.
Mm-hmm.
That was electrical.
Yeah. I mean, it got so hot though, part of the engine, part of the exhaust manifold and stuff is titanium. It melted titanium, and that is a hot fire. And there's actually some gold as well in this engine, and it melted so if you're melting gold and you're melting titanium, you can't get much hotter than that, guys.
Absolutely.
So
on a scale of 1 to 10, how upset was this person?
I think he was more around kind of like flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Because here you are driving this, fancy car, and who thinks it's going to catch on fire? That's something that you'd be driving a $2,000 car, not a, $2 million car.
But you're probably like just glad you're alive at that point.
And glad you got Hagerty insurance.
Or glad you didn't have your kids in the car or something. Not that you could put kids in a McLaren, but still.
Yeah, no, I think that was he was just so flabbergasted in shock that something like this would happen in a car like that, right? So,
Wow.
but no, let me take the story all the way to the end. So go to England. It's really cool when you go to the McLaren Technology Center. They give you a card in the parking lot, and you enter an elevator and you go down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a James Bond movie. You open up into a white hallway, and there's no receptionist, and you don't know what to do. So the only thing you can do is walk down this white hallway and go through this door.
It's like Men in
and you go into
Black.
an elevator.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of like Black, where they walk down the hallway, hallway.
Yes. You go into an elevator and you pop up, and you're right in the middle of their museum. And they have all their McLaren race cars there. And so anyway, I spent 3 months over there. I learned a ton about carbon fiber. Two of the highlights is when this car, the engine was back in Germany with BMW. So it just had the monocoque chassis. It was so light I could literally pick it up. It's not that heavy. I could pick up the car. That's how light it was. And then two, they did a demonstration where they literally had a piece of carbon fiber about the width of a Kleenex, and hit it with a battering ram. Did nothing to it, and it was so light. And then they took about, I'd say maybe a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch piece of steel, hit with the same battering ram, and it cracked the steel. And that's how tough this carbon fiber is. And so long story short, the car got fixed. The gentleman was really worried about diminished value because it was gonna be the only car that caught on fire. Guess what? No diminished value. He flew over. By the way, the seats on this car is $18,000, and they're customized to your body. He flew over, got in the car, took it on the racetrack. McLaren signed off on it. No diminished value because he sold it a couple years later for $20 million. $2 million, $20 million. I called him and said, "Hey, where's my cut?"
Exactly.
So
That's an outstanding story.
I saw a video recently. I love like business stuff like this. It was have you ever seen Roy Sutherland? I think that's how he's the British guy. He did a video about Ferrari, where when you buy a Ferrari, they will ship the car to you, or you can pay $500 or 650 pounds and pick the car up from their facility and get a tour. And like everybody does it. Sure. And he talked about what a brilliant marketing strategy that is, because they're literally getting you to pay so they don't have to ship the car to you. And oh, by the way, you get this tour of the factory too. I just think that kind of stuff is brilliant.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Before we get into your delve into the improv comedy world, I wanted to ask you too something. Bryant brought up, you go up the elevator and you're in their museum, right? McLaren's museum. Was Hagerty involved at all with the sinkhole that formed at the Corvette Museum? Y'all remember this?
I remember this. And John, you can answer if you want. I know I'm very detailed on this.
Was Hagerty involved in that? Because for our listening audience, I believe is it Kentucky? Where is it that the the Corvette Museum is located?
Yeah, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Bowling
John,
Green, Kentucky.
have you been there, John? I've actually seen the sinkhole. So
I haven't been yet, but the Ferrari story reminded me of what they do at the National Corvette Museum as well. But BK, please take this one.
So for our listeners, a couple of years ago, I can't remember, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't remember exactly when it happened, but apparently they come in one morning and in the middle of the floor of the damn Corvette Museum, a sinkhole has formed, and at least one car was in the sinkhole.
yes, yeah, yeah. Several cars got sunk into the sinkhole. Some are damaged, and luckily Hagerty was not the insurance. We
Okay,
do insure museums, but
sure.
that was not us. But if you listeners, if you go to the Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky, you should. They never filled a hole in. They just put a floor over it with kind of like a see-through floor, plexiglass or whatnot. And they left some of the car debris down there.
Yeah.
For special tours, you can crawl down there. I didn't do that, but they brought up some of the cars that weren't repairable, and so you can see them like all squished and smashed, and then yeah, like you were saying, the Ferrari, you can same thing. You can pay more money and like go get your Corvette. You can like wrench on the rest of the screws, finish off some of the stuff, and then drive it off the factory floor for a couple $1,000s, which I think is really cool.
That is
So,
cool. So,
yeah.
guys, I want to ask you guys both a question. I was telling Bradley, we were talking about the two of you the other day on a phone call, and I said, the crazy thing about Hagerty is everybody in the collectible world knows Hagerty. Like, I mean, you know Hagerty. They're probably, in my opinion, the most well-known carrier that doesn't do the $1 billion a year in television advertising. You guys have always done a very good job of, this is our crowd. Now if you're an agent and you want to sponsor, which we do in our agency, we have a pretty damn big car show in Priceville, Alabama, and I believe in August every year. Now, it's not a national car show, but it is a big car show. And as an agent, I know you guys have all kinds of marketing material available to agents if you're going to sponsor, like a car show or antique car show. You guys will, banners and posters and whatever for those kinds of things.
And you're not going to find a carrier that's more universally loved by their customers
100%.
than Hagerty.
But my question was this. Year of our Lord, 2025, what's new with Hagerty? What's something that you guys are like excited about that you're doing that maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago wasn't available or that you didn't do?
John, do you want to take that? Start with that?
Man, there's so much we could touch on, and I think what I want to do is just really kind of ground us in Hagerty as an organization. I think one of the reasons why, and thanks for saying such nice words. I mean, I tend to agree, but I know I'm biased. But I think one of the reasons why Hagerty is so well loved from our customers and from other enthusiasts is because of that authenticity that we bring. The company was founded about 40 years ago by true blue boat and car enthusiasts. They absolutely love their boats, love their cars, and they needed insurance solutions. It's like every good entrepreneurial story, right? I have a need for something I'm passionate about. The need, there's no solution to my need, so I'm going to make it. And that's really what the Hagertys did and have continued to do. And the company's purpose is to save driving and preserve car culture for future generations. And I say that, every company's got a mission statement or something like that, but Hagerty really lives that purpose to its core. And I'm starting here because a lot of the things that have happened over the last 10 to 15 years that are really exciting, or what have happened recently that were not available 10, 15 years ago, is Hagerty's expansion into more non-insurance areas of business. And all of these expansions that Hagerty does, it's all centered around that purpose. It's all in support of and in love of, the enthusiast automotive, the collector auto, and the people that enjoy those cars. So some things that have happened in the last couple of years that are new and different is events being a big one. You know, Hagerty's always had a place at events, the big ones, the small ones, and I love to hear, Scott, that you all run an annual car show. That is a great way to meet people, to have fun, also to network and you know, build relationships with prospects and customers. But Hagerty started to acquire some of the really big car nationally car events around the country. One, to bring us closer to our customers, but two, to help ensure that those events continue to prosper and grow for the long haul. So, you know, one in your kind of neck of the woods is the Amelia Island Concours. And that happens in the spring, you know, the March of every year. And what we've done with that is we've kind of grown and expanded that to reach an even broader audience. You know, what used to be, you know, a weekend that was really centered around the Concours d'Elegance itself, which is, you know, really a celebration of the world's finest automobiles. We've expanded that to add another day, to bring more families involved, more families there, to bring the Radwood era cars. Those are those like 80s and 90s collector vehicles that are exploding in popularity. You know, we want to bring that audience there. We want to celebrate those vehicles, and generally want to expand the event footprint to bring in more enthusiasts, to bring in more people that love cars, to experience the hobby that we all are so passionate about, and to get to know the brand a little bit better. And so that's one example of some events that we're, you know, investing in and growing and continuing to really steward for the automotive community. And, you know, another one that I just want to touch on too, that again really is kind of central to this hobby, is our auction business. So probably a lot of us, at least on the call and the listeners out there, are familiar with Bring a Trailer. It's a, you know, a very well known collector car auction platform. You know, Hagerty has had interest in getting into that space for quite a while. And we have successfully launched that just within the last couple of years. And we've done that in two ways. One, with our Broad Arrow auctions. And through Broad Arrow, we do live auctions at events like the Amelia Island Concours. We also have an online, you know, digital marketplace where folks can come in, you know, buy and sell their collector vehicles. And, you know, Hagerty got in that space, you know, not because it's a huge moneymaker, but because it helps keep Hagerty kind of in that position in the hobby of buying and selling cars, which is, you know, is as old as folks collecting vehicles. You know, the buying and selling of what people are into, of adding to a collection, of trading one out for something different. We wanted to help facilitate that in a different way by, you know, leveraging the brand that we have, the trust and appreciation that people have for the brand and for their vehicles, and creating a kind of a safe place for folks to buy and sell their cars. So just a couple examples of ways that Hagerty's expanding, really as a means to help surround and support the automotive enthusiast. And Brian, I don't know if you've got any other ideas that jump to your mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah, guys, I think, you know, what gets me excited is when I first started, we really worried about the younger generation. Like I'm mid 40s, like people my age, do they want to collect cars? Is the hobby gonna die? Our demographic information is getting younger, so we track our quotes, and our quotes by, you know, the younger generations, like millennials, for example, continue to increase. And so what I get excited about is going into agents' offices, saying, "Hey, there's a lot of cars from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s that are not classic." It's crazy for me to say. I got a 97 Trans Am. My first cool car I ever drove was my aunt's. Like, that's a classic car now. It has classic plates on it. How in the world is this classic?
In 30
There's a lot of
years,
those
we'll have
cars.
classic Teslas.
Yeah, I mean, right, Brad? I mean, like, yeah. But there's a lot of those cars with Geico. There's a lot of those cars with standard carriers that don't have the right coverages. I think right now is the awesome time for agents to realize, like, hey, there's opportunities with these newer cars. We can do up to a 2025 Corvette or something really fun. Go get those younger demographics they're starting to collect. Get them on the right policy from an ACV. Get them on a guaranteed value policy, and then go get the rest of their house as they start to really get some of this wealth that their parents and grandparents are going to give to them over the next few years, and when the wealth transfer happens, and then also as they start to progress in their careers. These are like cornerstone clients that agents can build their books on. So that's what gets me excited. The hobby's getting younger. There's more interest than ever, and there's more classic cars than ever, because now every year, early 2000s now are becoming classics. Every year the market just grows. So there's like 45 million classic cars in the United States. Way bigger than people think.
I've got 2 questions for you boys. Question number 1. Give our listening audience the one vehicle over the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years that you guys have really seen. We're talking classics now, so could be 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s that you've seen really skyrocket in value.
Or in popularity.
Yeah, but which I'm going to assume will equal
Yeah.
increased value, because what's the one vehicle, and then that's gonna dovetail into question number 2.
I'm gonna pick, because it kind of covers all those years. I'm gonna pick the Bronco.
That was question number 2.
So
So my grandfather passed away in 1993. He left me a 1966 Dodge Charger. Okay.
oh, cool.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit of a car enthusiast, Mopar guy.
All right.
No more than the average bear, but I'm not a guy that's going to sit there and really be able to get down in it with you. But I know enough to be dangerous.
Okay.
And for those of the people that are listening to this that aren't into antique vehicles or classic vehicles, at some period of time, I'm going to guess 10, 15 years ago, these original 1966 all the way up into the 80s Ford Broncos just start skyrocketing in value. So I have friends of mine who are Bronco aficionados, and the value of those original Broncos, the old school Broncos, it got to the point to where, see, they were going to people who had a Bronco in a barn under a tarp, and they would say, "Hey, I'll give you $15,000-$20,000 for that Bronco," and these farmers and people that had them would say, "Yeah, I'll sell it to you for that. That's a great price." Now everybody knows what they're worth.
Yep.
And so you can find one that's rusted out, and somebody will be like, "I'm not selling that for less than 35." So if you go online and let's say Rand decides he wants to buy a fully restored, like super clean 66 Bronco, you're probably looking at $120,000 right now. My question was going to be, now that Ford has come out with their new line of Broncos, has that dropped the price of the older model Broncos, kind of lost some of the value, or has that retained its value?
I think to your point that I don't think it changed the value that much. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they're increasing like, 50, 70,
Right.
80% over the last couple of years. But you can still get, Gateway Broncos, a good example. You can still go in and build a Bronco, an old Coyote edition, things like that for a couple $100,000. But I think to your point, I think the cool part about the Bronco is it drove such demand, and that's why I picked it, that Ford listened and brought it back with a
Right.
new one, right?
Right.
And so I haven't seen it affect the older values, because I think you always have those old Broncos and they're always gonna be really cool. But also, I think it's really neat because my neighbor is a good example. He's in his 80s now. He really can't like work on old Broncos. He really can't even get into them that much. But he's got a new one. He's got a new Ford Bronco Raptor, and he can still drive it. So I love that the older demographic can still enjoy something physically that they put in on the old stuff.
Do you know
Definitely.
do you know what my pick was going to be?
What was it?
The Toyota FJ Cruiser.
That came to mind too. That came to mind too. Those are pretty sweet too.
Those are really sweet.
The last model they made. So we have one of those as well. We've given it right now to our son to drive up in Nashville. He's driving our white 2011 FJ Cruiser. And the last year Toyota made that vehicle was the 2013-14 year. But, buddy, if you put one of those on, I cannot tell you, 20, 25 people have contacted us and been like, if you ever want to sell that Toyota FJ Cruiser, I will buy it tomorrow for whatever you tell me you want it.
You're so right. I was actually in the market just for a new daily driver, and I just was scouring the internet and my like local classifieds and neighborhoods looking for one of those old, not even old, yeah, like aughts or early tens FJs, and they are really hard to find. And when you do, yeah, they hold their value extremely well.
Well, Toyotas in
So
general
Yeah.
typically do,
yes,
So my
absolutely.
wife is driving the 2025 first edition Toyota Land Cruiser. The 2025. Now that vehicle is so new that obviously it's got years and years before it becomes a Hagerty product. But the other thing I wanted to tell you too while we're on this show is Bradley has sworn on a stack of Bibles, on his words, not mine, on my kid's life, that when he gets rich, which he will do one day, he's going to buy me the 1962 black Lincoln Continental, suicide doors, convertible top, the original model that was on the opening credits of the show Entourage.
Yes.
Does everybody remember this?
That's
Oh,
the
yes.
first time I've heard
Yes.
that conversation. By the
Now,
way,
no, it's not. You know you did it, Bradley. I remember when where we were when you said it. Now, guys, let's tell Bradley what he's going to be coming out of pocket to buy Scott that vehicle. Where are we looking at? I think I know. I think it's going to be north of $100,000.
I was gonna say it's gonna be definitely six figures,
Yeah.
for sure. So you definitely, and I think those are iconic. You've got Entourage, you've got the Lincoln Lawyer. I don't know if you guys watch that on Netflix.
love
Like,
that show.
Like
I like the
these are
movie
really
better
cool.
though.
Yeah. Same.
Now,
Scott,
you got to help me out here because you guys may or may not know this. I'm not holding you to this. Was that the vehicle? Not that same vehicle, but the vehicle that John F. Kennedy was assassinated in?
Yeah, it was so before I was in insurance, I was a teacher, and in Detroit, Michigan, at Greenfield Village, they have the car that he was
Sure.
assassinated in,
Right.
the Lincoln Continental, right? So I think, to your point, it's obviously a little modified, but yeah, it's pretty much the same car.
Yeah, I thought so. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
So talking about earlier, we mentioned, I don't know, insurance carriers in general are hated by most people. Like when I have and this will happen every now and then because my agency's in an E&S market, and most of the carriers that we write people with, unless they've really paid attention to their insurance, they've never heard of that carrier, right? And a lot of times they'll go online and be like, "Oh, don't put me with that carrier." They've got horrible Google reviews or horrible online reviews. And I'm like, well, look at any insurance carrier, right? But I don't know that there is a carrier that is universally loved by both agents and their customers than Hagerty. So hats off to you guys. I want to spend the last segment of the show here talking about you guys' theories on why that is. And I'll tell you, I think it's a good lesson for agents. And I love that you said that, I think you said the founder of Hagerty was passionate about classic cars. And it's a good lesson for agents in that, we always talk about, you need to find a niche or a couple niches that your agency specializes in. And it's great if you start with something that you are passionate about, right? And I haven't really found that for me because I haven't really figured out a good way to insure bourbon collections that would make me a lot of money. But I think it's a good lesson for agents in that, okay, do some soul searching and some digging. And what are you passionate about? Or is there something adjacent to what you're passionate about? And you can dive into that. So talk a little bit about that. And I think, I don't know that the result that you guys were shooting for years and years ago was to be universally loved by your customers, but that's certainly been the byproduct of that.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. To find something you're passionate about, internalize that and use that as your engine, your gasoline to kind of push you, and to then create some authentic connections with potential customers and your existing customers. because it's really the passion that's going to, forge those strong relationships. And, when it comes to classic collector cars, Bryant and I aren't totally delusional. For a lot of agents out there, it's probably never going to be the main focus, like this market.
Right.
But, I think from what we're talking about, something that I hope folks will take away from this is that, when you look at the book, I look at the numbers, the types of risks Hagerty takes, the loss ratio, the member retention, it's like really good business. But then when you add on top of that, that these are passion assets, people absolutely love them, that the cars themselves are filled with emotions. You all have shared, stories about the cars that you've had and what you've done in cars and other stories that you've seen online. And so, when people have good or bad experiences as it relates to these cars, it's going to have a really big impact on how they feel about the agent, the agency, the coverage. And, and when you can aim for good and deliver something good, and that can come with a partnership, with Hagerty, as y'all kind of did the heavy lifting for us. Our NPS score, if you guys know what that is, Net Promoter Score, it's a measure of customer satisfaction. It's over 80, right? That means about 8 out of 10 customers would refer Hagerty to a friend. And to your point, the insurance industry average is somewhere in the 40s.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, like,
and that's just the people that have admitted to what their NPS is. That's probably lower than that.
Good point. When you think about that, 8 out of 10 referring versus 4 out of 10, what would it feel like to double your referral pipeline? And so it's like you can use, it doesn't have to be the main focus, but learning how to recognize people that are passionate about their cars, that maybe have a story, or even recognizing what the appetite is and being proactive to say, hey, look at tell me about this car. Tell me, how do you use this car? Tell me about this car. And then being able to deliver a really good solution, to that customer for something they really care about and are passionate about, really helps just deepen relationships and drive that relationship with the customer. There's really no substitute for that.
Can I tell you what my favorite thing is?
Yeah.
So sometimes, Scott, when I'm in a bad mood and I just need to be like lifted up a little bit,
You start looking at 1962 Lincoln.
no, I will call Hagerty's customer service line and ask to be put on hold. That's
We
a
hear this
joke.
a lot,
That's a
Brad.
joke, but the hold music is absolutely phenomenal. Like you guys and Apple are the two.
Wait, what is the whole? Okay, so what is the whole? Is it classic 80s?
It's classical music. It's classic music, right? It's like good
Classic
music.
music,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cars or songs you may have, heard or sung to in the car.
Who came up with that idea? There's
don't
got to
know,
be a
honestly, no.
story. Like there's some marketing guy that no longer works at Hagerty that brags to his buddies and says, "Yeah, that was my idea," whether it was or not.
It is funny. I don't know the whole story of how it got created, but I always get a laugh out of, we have our call center team who are fantastic, amazing professionals, the folks that work and run that call center, saying, hey, like, we want to be really mindful of call volume. We want to deliver a really good experience. Like, let's be mindful of like who's calling and what are they calling about. And then we'll go and visit agents, and every agent kind of has that same thing. Oh, I just call. If I have any questions, I just call. You guys are the best. I love the whole music. And so it's always cracked me up that we've got one side saying, hey, let's like be mindful of, who's calling. We want to give good service. And the other, our agent partners and our customers are just love calling in. They love hearing the whole music, and they love talking to our team.
Well, it's like the little extra thing. It's like what is an inconvenience that people have to go through when dealing with us, and how do we make that better, right? And I think about like Jesse Kolle, who's a friend of mine with the Savannah Bananas. We've had him on the podcast multiple times. Like, okay, what's one of the worst parts about going to a baseball game? Standing in line outside of the stadium, and let alone somebody like the Savannah Bananas that sell out everywhere they go. So they do a pre-show in the parking lot while people are waiting. Okay, what's and I don't know if it may have just been like, hey, yeah, that sounds cool, let's do it. But I think it's a brilliant business play. It's like, what's inconvenient about doing it, and how do we make that just a little bit better? You know what I mean? And it's something that people are going to talk about, and I'm sure it's not cheap to license that music, because we've looked into doing something like that with our whole music. You have to pay for the licensing for that, and it's not inexpensive. And I like Apple's too, because when you call Apple customer service, which you've probably never done because you're not an Apple person,
No, I'm not.
but it's like press 1 for classic rock, press 2 for modern rock, press 3 for pop. And so you get to pick, and it's like, it changes where like, you don't necessarily mind being put on hold to some degree.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? But
That's
you're
awesome.
certainly catering to your customer base by doing that.
No, thank you. And I know we're getting close on time. I got to tell a really, really quick story. Our CEO, McKeel Hagerty, the founder's son, he said, to your point, the worst experience you can get as a client is getting an insurance bill in the mail, and that's the only time you talk to your insurance agent or your carrier. So to your point, he wants the clients to really be engaged. So we've got about 86 or 89 different touch points where you've got classic content, you got YouTube channel, you've got all these other things that fuel what they want to do. And then when you get their bill in the mail, they're like, oh yeah, that's why I pay that. That's why that's my agent, because all this cool content sucks them in throughout the year. So I think you're right. That's the experience he's trying to describe.
Well, I think about Hagerty, it's especially after this conversation, you guys are a car company that just so happens to sell insurance.
Exactly.
It's like
right.
there's all these
Yes.
other things, and oh, by the way, this is like, I think about a
That
company.
needs to be their tagline.
Yeah, a company I really admire. There's a company called, and I've talked about this on the show before. Actually, their CMO who created this idea was on our show several years ago. I think that was actually the only show Scott was never on because we had a hurricane and we couldn't reschedule this guy. But Jake Failing, he's with Movement Mortgage, and Movement Mortgage's mantra is they're a T-shirt company that happens to sell mortgages. So they release these like once a month, they release like a really cool T-shirt with their logo in a different way on it, and everybody wants the T-shirts. And oh yeah, by the way, we also do mortgages as well. And I think if you can find something that's like a greater purpose and a greater mission, it brings this other thing along on the coattails and makes it successful without you feeling like somebody's just hawking insurance all the time. You know.
Well said. I think you're right on. I think that's what makes Hagerty special. Is you're right. We
Yeah.
like have our call center employees go restore cars so they can talk to people on the phone about restoring a car, like stuff like that,
Yeah.
right?
So before Scott closes this out, you guys recently started a podcast. Take a minute and plug that.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. We, I was actually reading through, Scott, your bio and what you list out as the kind of the purpose of this podcast that you guys do, and I think ours is kind of similar through our own lens. And Bryant and I started a podcast. It's called The Accelerator. It's a podcast by Hagerty, really designed to help our agent and broker partners be successful in this market. How can you use the collector car market, these customers, to help grow and solidify your business? And with that, we're not just talking about Hagerty. We're not just talking about the collector car niche. We do bring in other folks, thought leaders in the insurance space and in sales and beyond, to kind of add a little bit more, more context, more information, and something a little bit outside insurance that we can all apply in our daily lives and work. But really, that intention of really helping to drive success and drive business through this collector car niche. And yeah, it's called The Accelerator. You can download it, wherever you like to get your podcasts.
You know what I think you guys should do? It would be really expensive, but I think you should do this. You should do, and the stand-up comedy guy would be perfect for that, right? You should do MTV Cribs, but classic cars, where you guys are flying somebody to, it's not like you don't have a customer list of basically every cool classic car in the country. Fly somebody, pick a customer once a month, fly somebody out, do a YouTube series where you're interviewing them and looking at the car. Think Jay Leno's Garage combined with comedians in car getting coffee, and just make a car show. And not only will the YouTube revenue for that more than pay for it, but it's going to pull Hagerty along with it. I think you guys should more than do that. And I could literally see like Netflix or somebody picking that up.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning that was the Smart List podcast with those guys. You know who I'm talking about. Jason Bateman, Will Arnett. Their guest yesterday was Gordon Ramsay, and in the middle of that podcast, they start talking about where he's living. He's got a couple houses in different places. He has just built a enormous warehouse for his 93 collectible cars.
Yeah,
that is what Bradley's talking about. You fly over to England, I believe he lives in the south of London, and you interview Gordon Ramsay and go through all his collectible cars for that to me that would just, you're right. I'd watch the shit out of that on Netflix. I'm telling y'all, there's
Brad,
something there. There's something there.
We're gonna steal your idea, Brad.
Get after it.
And by the way, when you reach out to Gordon Ramsay's people, and at first you're gonna be like, he probably won't. But when he finds out what y'all are gonna do, because what do people love to do?
Talk about their cars.
Talk about their
Show
cars.
off their vehicles. And he's gonna be like, hell yeah, tell them to come on. He would love that. Anyway, I'm gonna shut this thing down.
Or he might call you an idiot sandwich. You never know.
Nah, he's actually a really good guy. I think a lot of that's TV stuff. But hey, Bryant, John, thank you so much for being on today. We appreciate y'all so much and wish you nothing but success. If there's ever anything we can do for you over here, please reach out, okay?
Thanks for having us on, guys.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and as I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. Get with Hagerty. If you got a local car show in your area, man, what a perfect time to go build some relationships with some great AAA possible clients who have collectibles, because if they have collectibles, they're probably the type of clients you want in your agency. Go make money for your family, for your wife, for your husband, for your kids' college fund, and for your parents and your in-laws out there that are struggling like mine are. Go make money for them. Write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
Guys, have a great day.